Hello, 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 Clum Fandango here, and because everyone is locked indoors and can't do anything and the world is entirely ending as we know it, I thought what better place or time to do a virus simulation using p5.js. And so what we're going to do is we're going to have a canvas that does some things, and it's going to have a load of dots, and one of the dots is going to be infected, and the dots are going to be moving around, and when the infected dot hits another dot, then that will infect the dot, and we'll see how long it takes to infect all the dots on the screen. So let's go ahead and get started. Now I've already created two files because I thought it'd be too boring to sit and watch these. So I've created one, the index.html. You can get this in the doobly-doo. All the index.html file has is a link to a style sheet, a link to Bootstrap, the style sheet, a link to p5.js, and a link to all the JavaScript files that we're going to use, but I haven't actually bothered creating yet. The other file I have created is one of the JavaScript files, and that's coordinate.js, and it's just this class, so we have an X and a Y coordinate just so we can save a bit of time when we are, or save passing data around basically. We are going to need to create three additional files actually. One of them is going to be a style sheet, style.css. The other one is going to be one called sketch.js, and the other one is going to be one called dot.js, and that's going to be our dot class. Is going to do all of our dotty dot things. Let's go ahead and get started with the dot class so we can actually just do some cool stuff. So dot.js. Start off, let's use strict. Using strict in JavaScript basically means JavaScript is going to throw more errors when you do things wrong, which is easier to help you catch the errors that occur when they do occur. Even though it still doesn't catch half as many errors as it should do, but there we go, enough of moaning. We are creating this, and all these things that we're creating now, so the speed, direction, the canvas, are going to be coordinates. We're also going to create a size that's just going to be a standard number, and we're going to create pass in the infected value, which is going to be a boolean. So is it infected or not? True or false? We're also going to have two other properties that are going to be created, but they're going to be created on each creation of a dot. In fact, you know what? We're not even going to create a direction and a speed. We're going to do that in here as well. So what we're going to do is we are going to create a position. The position is going to be equal to, we're going to create a function called start location that's going to be bound by the canvas. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a canvas that has, an X and Y. So it's going to be, the width of the window, like maybe by 800 pixels. And we want to start the position of every dot we create by a random value within the canvas, which is why I'm passing in the X and Y of the canvas. And we'll create that function now. Let's create the function now. We'll say function start location, whoopsie daisy, pass in X, pass in Y, come along, and we are going to return a new coordinate. And in fact, we need to create a new function as well, because we want to create a function called rand_range, because we want to create a random number within the range of the canvas within some sort of margin of error. So like, we don't want to go all the way to the edge. We don't want it to allow it to start at the very edge of the canvas, because there's a potential for it to get stuck at the edge of the canvas, because these things are going to move around. So we're going to give it some, slight leeway. So this is going to be, maybe 5 pixels within the edge of the canvas. Okay, and we'll do this, and we'll pass in 5. And now, of course, we've got to create that bloody function as well. Great. Okay, so we'll create the function rand_range, and that's going to have a constraint, I'll call it, and it's also going to have a minimum. I mean, really, I should call that max. That makes so much more sense. It's going to be math. No. Return first. Always remember to return. So we want to return this. Math.ceiling. So we're just going to round up this value we get. Math.random. Make sure we do the function. Multiplied by the max minus the min plus the min. Yes. So all that's going to return is a random number within this range. So it's going to be within the range of the canvas size on the x-axis, the canvas size on the y-axis minus 5 pixels. So if we had 1,000 pixels wide for the canvas, it's going to be within 5 pixels and 1,000 pixels. That's all good. So let's go ahead and start creating all the other stuff we need to create. So this dot speed, this is going to be equal to a random coordinate like that. This dot direction, again, also going to be equal to a random coordinate like that. We want to have a property called color, so they're going to start off white if they're not infected. If they are infected, they are going to be red. So the way we can do that is we can use a ternary statement. So we've got the information we need. We've got infected. So if it's infected, then we need to return the color red. So this is going to be 255 0 0 0. Or if it's not that, then we can return white, which is 255 255 255. We also need to pass in the canvas. We've got the canvas, so this goes down here. And the size is going to be equal to the size. And of course, this infected is equal to infected. Cool. So we also need to create this rand coordinates function now. And I think the way we're going to do that is by creating yet another 2 functions. So one of them is just going to be rand. It's going to be within a constraint like that. And this is going to be return math.ceiling math.random. The reason I'm doing ceiling as opposed to floor here is because I don't want it to round down to 0 ever, because we've got speed and direction. So if speed's 0, the thing will never move. So we want to make sure we do that and times it by the constraint. Okay, cool. And then we also need to create a function called rand coordinate like this. You maybe want if you've used languages like Python that are more annoying with how you define functions, you couldn't define this function that's going to be used. You need to define the functions in order, basically. In fact, the way I'm doing it right now will be fine, but just know that in JavaScript it has something called hoisting, which basically moves all your function declarations and all your declarations to the top of the class, which has some problems, but I'm not going to get into that here, just something to be aware of. So then what we're going to do is we're going to return a new coordinate, and that is going to be rand. Should I pass in the canvas? If I pass in the canvas, then we can do rand, and we constrain. We want to constrain it by the canvas. Do we? No, we don't. No, we don't. We don't need to do that. We can just say rand. I'm passing like a number like, I don't know, 4. Okay, because we don't want it to be too high. If it's too high, then they'll be too fast moving around. I might even think 4's too fast in the direction. That doesn't really matter too much. So that'll be fine there. Okay, that looks all good. Next thing we need to do, we need to create a function to move these dots. So the way we're going to do that, or a method should I say, to move the dots is going to be, we need to check the boundary. So what we're going to do is this move is going to be called every time the canvas renders, which happens a lot with p5.js. Every time it renders, it's going to move the dot. But we want to check that the dot isn't hitting the edge. If it's hitting the edge, we want to change the direction. So let's do that. The way we do that is we can create a function, or a method actually, called check boundaries, and we just need to check that we're not hitting the boundaries there. Once we've done that, we will have updated the position of this object. So then we want to update the position with a new coordinate. Sorry, we'll have updated the direction that we're going in, so we can actually update the position based on the speed and the direction. The way we're going to do that is we are going to say new coordinate is equal to this position x plus this speed x. Theoretically, I could have just put speed as one value, but I put it as a coordinate because then you can sort of change it by direction if you wanted to. And then we're going to multiply that by the direction x. And we've gone onto a new line. Great. We also want to do the y. This is going to be, and that shouldn't be position, that should be pos. We'll sort that in a second. Same thing again, this dot speed. I probably could have done this in a little function as well. Times by this dot direction dot y. Close the brackets, come all the way back, or come this way. Get rid of that. Cool. So now we can move our little dot. We also need to create that check boundaries method, so we can do that by doing this. And the way we do that is we need to check if we've hit either the x or the y axis. So thinking about it, it's probably better to have one function that checks if we've hit either x or y. We can pass in the dot and the axis we want to check, so we can use code more than once. And there we go, code reuse. That's a very good thing to do. So what we're going to do with this is we're going to return a boolean. The boolean is going to be of dot position. Well, it's actually going to be have we hit the boundaries, what the question we're asking here. So if the position of the x-axis or the y-axis, notice here that I'm using square brackets to access the value and passing in axis. So I'm going to pass in a string here, and so if I put in an x here, it will be the x-axis. Here we're using the dot notation to access the position. So we could theoretically also say dot x, but we can't do dot x and pass it in as a variable because that wouldn't work. So we're having to do it with the square brackets here, which is why we can reuse this function for both the x and the y-axis. So if the position is greater than the canvas minus the size of the thing, then we can say great, it is actually hitting the boundary, and we need to do something like change direction. So the reason we're putting the size in there is because obviously our dots are going to have a size, and if we didn't check for the size, they would overlap, and it's only when they've gone fully past the boundary that we would think that they'd hit the boundary. Or we could also check for the position being less than the size. That's another way of checking that as well. Okay, it's less than the size. All the way around. I always got the crocodile-y things wrong. And we've gone over the edge again. Oh well. Okay, so we're going to check the boundaries, and to do this we want to check, we're going to say if hit boundary this x, then we want to do something, i.e. change direction. And if hit boundary this, so this is basically saying passing the entire object that we currently have at the moment. We want to also change direction here. So to change direction, what we're going to do is we're going to say this dot direction x in this case is going to be take it and multiply it by -1, which will basically change the direction. It will say it will switch, it will flip the sign. There we go. So we'll say -1, and again same thing over here. Probably could have done this better in another function of some description, so we don't have to replicate code. But que sera, sera. You're seeing many ways to do things here. Okay, other methods we want in here. We want to have a render function. This is just going to, as you'd guess, render our dots. The dots are going to be rendered using the ellipsis function in p5.js. So we do this. So this is going to create us an ellipsis object. We'll pass in the x, and we'll pass in the y, and we will also pass in the size. And that's all good for that. We also want to create a method called infect. And what we're going to do with the infect is we are going to we're just going to say this infected equals true, and this dot color is going to be equal to color. I should have set these up in their own variables really as well, because this doesn't make any bloody sense. No one knows what the hell this is. Yeah, let's make it a little bit better. Const red is going to be equal to color 225,080, and const white is going to be equal to color like that. So red, and we'll say white. So now that this bit of code makes a little bit more sense. And of course this is now going to make a little bit more sense as well, because someone can read it and see exactly what we're intending to do here. So that looks all good for the dot file. Let's go along to the sketch file, which is where the magic happens. So we're going to use strict. We are going to, let's start creating some global variables that we need. So we want to create the width. The width, we're just going to say window dot inner width, and we also want to say height. That's going to be 800 pixels, and the population. So we want to have a population of dots. Call it 100. And we want to create an array of dots, so we're going to store all of our dots that we create in this array, and we're also going to create an array of infected dots so we can keep an easy count of them, basically. So we're going to keep all of the dots in there. As the dots become infected, they get put in here, and the first dot to be infected will get put in there straight away, because obviously we have to have at least one infected for it to infect the others. Then with p5.js we need two functions. We need setup, and we also need the function draw. So setup gets called before anything else, and basically we'll set up our canvas that we need, and that's all really going to. We're also going to create our dots in this setup function, so it only gets called once. And then the draw function, this is how we're going to create like our animation of what's happening, because that gets called every like few milliseconds or so. So it animates things. So using the create canvas method in p5.js, we are going to create our little canvas like this, and we should also create a function called create population, and we'll come all the way down here and we'll say function create population, and we'll leave that a second, and then we'll create it in a minute. Let's just see if we can see anything pop up on Google Chrome. So we'll create a background. 51 is just sort of a medium grey. 0 is black. 255 is white. So everything in between is grey. We refresh this. Oh, we've got an error on dots. So let's go to the dot file. What's the error? Go to line 14. This infected equals infected. Aha, there's no dot. I'm a clown, so this should be a dot. Return out of here, and then back to the sketch. Excellente, and if we refresh the page on Google Chrome, now we'll look at that. We have our nice grey canvas, so that's pretty cool. And so what shall we do? Well, we'll create our population. The way we're going to create our population is we want to create n-1 non-infected ones, but one of them we want to create it as an infected one. So the way we're going to do that is we're going to create a for loop. Okay, say for let I is equal to 1, not 0, and the reason for that is that we want to go all the way up to the population, and then don't do any more. And the reason for doing that is that by going to 1, we skip at least one of the members of the, well, only one of the population. Basically doing this is equivalent to setting this to 0 and then having population -1, but I think this is better, potentially. Some people might disagree with me there, but you know, each to their own. So what we want to do for this is we want to create a new dot, and put it in the dots array. So we do that by saying dot. And what do we need to pass? We need to pass the coordinate of the canvas, which is width by height. Oh my god. Like that. Then we need to pass in the size, which will be 16 pixels. And then these ones aren't going to be infected, so we only need to pass in the false for infected, so it's not infected. Then we need to create an infected one, which I'm going to create a function for because I want to both add it to the dots array and also create it to the infected array. So we'll call this create carrier, just so it's a little bit nicer. We only have sort of one function. And the way we do this, we're going to say const carrier is equal to new dot. It's going to be equal to the new coordinate. And really I should have passed in the canvas as opposed to passing in a new coordinate. I don't know why I didn't think of just doing that. That's a far better way of doing it. I should have just passed in the canvas. No, I shouldn't, because it's not even a thing. Ignore me. Ignore me. 16 again, and then we'll just pass in true. And what we want to do here is we want to say dots dot push carrier, but we also want to do infected dot push carrier. Okay, so that looks all good at the moment. We should potentially start moving the dots. So to move the dots, what I propose we do is we create a function called move dots that is basically just going to iterate over our dots in our array and call that move method we had on each one. But it's also going to do something where we check for collisions, because otherwise we'd have to create another function where we basically loop through things more than once. We are going to loop through things more than once, but it will be an additional set of times we have to loop through things. So we're going to say const dot of dots. Note there I'm using of, not in. If you're using const dot in dots, you'd actually be looping over the properties of the dot object and not of the dots in the array. So just something to be aware of there. We'll call dot dot move, and then we'll also say for const dot to of dots. Sure, there's a better way of doing this, but you know. Then we'll say check collision, which we haven't created yet, so we should probably create that now. Let's create that function, check collision. This is going to be slightly bigger of a function. And we'll pass in dot, and we'll pass in dot 2. And what do we need to check here? Well, what we need to do is we need to use the dist function in that p5.js gives us. We basically want to check that the radius of either one of them doesn't overlap. So, well, basically we're checking that they don't overlap. It's basically what I'm doing here. So we're going to say dist, and we'll say dot dot pos dot x dot dot pos dot y dot 2 dot pos dot x dot 2 dot pos dot y, and we want to check that that is less than the dot size. One of the things we also probably should check here as well is that both the dots aren't infected, or we need to check only that one of them's infected. So we need to say is one infected. The reason we want to check that only one of them's infected is because what we want to do is we want to only do something to these if one of them is infected. If both of them are infected, we don't need to infect either of them because they're already infected. That'll make sense in a second. So we're passing the dot, passing dot 2 to that one, and we'll also have to create that function now, which I haven't done yet, obviously, because you're watching me write it. So what we'll do, we'll check if one is infected. So we'll say function is one infected. How do we check if one's infected? Well, what we can do is we can say, let's think about this. It's really simple actually. All it is return dot. What is it? Think about this. We could also check. We'll add another function as well. We'll check if both of them are infected. So just to make it easier to read. Otherwise, it becomes this sort of complicated section of logic that no one can understand what the hell it means, and they have to figure it out. You can't see the programmer's intent. So we'll check if both of them are infected, and the way you do that is you say return dot infected and .to.infected. And what we want to do here is we want to check if one of them is infected. So we want to say is .infected or is .to infected. Now the problem with this, of course, is that, well, both of them could be infected. So we also need to check are both infected. But we need to say are both of them not infected. Because if both of them aren't infected, but one of these is infected, then this will return true. So one will be infected. Excellente. And back to checking what happens if there's a collision. What we want to do is we just want to say .infect. And we also just want to say .to_infect. You could check which one of them is infected here, but it seems like a complete pointless waste of time because really, if it's already infected, we're not actually changing anything. So, oh well. We also want to push the dot to infected. It doesn't matter which dot we pass to infected, as long as we don't pass both of them, because then we'll double the count of the dots that are infected. So only pass one of them to infected. Remember, they are pretty much identical objects apart from the true value at the end. So we've got the move dots. That's all working. So what do we need to do? If we call move dots here, I think we should get some stuff happening. We don't. We've got some errors. We'll have a look at that real quick as usual. There's always errors in my videos. What have I done wrong there? Check boundaries, hit boundary, this. I can't see what the issue is there. Okay, right. We'll have a look at the one at sketch.js because that makes more sense. The one at sketch.js is going to be wasn't expecting and. Why isn't it expecting and? It should be expecting and. The reason it's not expecting and is because we put this second one here, this second bracket. We don't want that there. And then we'll figure out what the hell is going wrong with .js. Why is this being a pain? And I need to move the bracket down here. My God, here we go. Okay, so many mistakes are occurring. Let's have a look. Okay. 55 in Sketch now. This is why you should always have your console window open. What have we got? We've got that. So we've got one at the end of the line that we don't need. Forgotten the shortcut to get to the end of the line. Oh well. Refresh the page. Dot is not defined. Okay. Alrighty then. Doesn't seem like a... Why is that being a prick? We also need a create carrier actually. We haven't added the create carrier here. There's many mistakes being made. Dot is not defined. The reason dot's not defined, I suspect, is because of that error that is in dot. So we'll have a look at dot.js. And we'll try and figure out what the issue is together as a family. Move looks okay. The constructor looks okay. We're in the object. Check boundaries. This looks okay. This looks totally okay. I am not 100% sure why this is kicking off. I know 100% why this is kicking off. I can just see it now. What a clown. More bracket errors. Put a bracket there. Put a bracket there. Pip pip pow. Winner winner chicken dinner. Oh, it's not defined. Color is not defined on .3. My God, so many errors. Why have I put color? should we potentially move it to within the thing? This was a daft idea, wasn't it? Why is it saying it's not defined? It should totally be defined. Such a liar. Let me just quickly try something. I don't think this will work, but hey ho. If I do paste that, oh god, that does not seem right. We'll paste this here. If this works, I'll be very surprised. I don't think it's going to work. Yeah, ain't going to work. Okay, so we will undo this change, even though I wanted to make it nice and nice. It's not going to be nice and nice, so we'll get rid of this, and we'll come back down to red and white real quick, and we'll say color 255.0.0, and we'll say color 255.255.255, and all the way back down to here. We need to remember this doesn't exist anymore, so we say color 255.0.0.0. Save it, check that error hasn't occurred again. Reference error infected is not defined. You're a liar and a thief. Definitely is defined. Let's come back to Sketch. We are going to 57 infected. Oh, maybe it isn't defined. Injected. That's why. I'm an absolute clown. Okay. Boom, shakalaka laka laka. That's working. We're not rendering stuff at the moment because we haven't actually called a render function. So I propose we create a render function. So we've got our render function on our dots. We should probably actually just do it here. We could do dot.render. Could that work? See if that works. There you go. Cool, we've got a load of dots created. That's cool. We should also have one that is red, but we don't have one that's red. This is not good. They are moving a bit fast, so maybe we ought to slow them down a bit. So we'll go to our dot file, go to dot.js, and we will look for 4, and we want to change that to maybe 2. And again, I should have just done a find and replace there, but I didn't. Whoopsie daisy. Okay, that's a little bit slower. Yeah, looks alright. Cool. So now we can see what's happening. We've got all the dots moving around, bumbling around, and we should be able to see a red one. I'm not 100% sure where the red one actually is. I know where the red one is. We haven't actually said what colour we want it to be yet. So what we should probably do is say fill dot color. Yes, that looks like it would do it. Okay, now we've got the red one, it's here. And as you can see, it's now infecting the others. When it hits one, it infects one, and it carries on and carries on and carries on and carries on and carries on until we have infected the entire party of all of them. And that's like nearly all of them. No, that's all of them now. Brilliant. So this is all working pretty well. We've got a few things we can now do to improve this. What do we want to do? Well, what we can do is we should update our text. So in our index.html file, I've set a few h3 elements available so that we can actually update the text to give us a summary of what's going off. So we can do that. So we'll create a function called update text to do that. And we will also check if it's complete. If it's complete, we'll just stop the animation. So create those two functions now. Update text. So if you've downloaded the file from the description, the index file, you should be able to just follow along with this next bit really easily. I'm going to say select virus, I think it is, .html, and we want to say backtick, not normal quotes, backtick, so we can use string interpolation, infected, and then $, the squiggly brackets, infected, .length. Yep, that looks cool. And again, we'll do the same sort of thing for the others. So we want to also have the healthy ones. So we have a healthy H3, I think it is actually. And then we'll do the same thing again, backtick, healthy, and we want to do that squiggly, and then dots.length minus infected.length. There you go, backtick. And we want to have a total, so the total is going to be select total. We'll set the HTML to, again, backtick total $, dots dot length, and that looks cool. And then what we can do, add that other function, the check complete function. So we'll say function check complete. How do we know if it's complete? Well, if it's, the way we know it's complete is we can say if dots dot length minus infected dot length is equal to 0, then we know full well that this is completed because everyone's infected. So what we can do is we can say no loop. No loop is a function that we get with p5.js, and it will stop the animation when that's done. So what we're going to do now, we'll refresh the page, then we're going to go ahead and update some of the CSS so it looks a little bit better. And then we should be all gravy. So as this animation occurs, we're going to be updating the CSS. So before I refresh, let's go to the CSS file, star.css. Refresh the page. Oh, I can't. Oh, we've made an error. We need to come back. I was way too confident there. We've made an error on line 25. I put healthily. Is that right? That looks more right. Back to star.js. Refresh. It's working. Okay. The CSS is this is a slightly boring bit of the video. Body. I just want to have padding. Oh, that was quick. That was really quick when that one happened. It's infected everyone really, really fast. Background, I want some sort of grey as well. So 26. The colour of the text is all going to be white unless we specify otherwise, not colour. And then for the healthy one, we want to have a green colour because green's nice and healthy. Colour green. And I've done that wrong as well. And for the infected one, so the virus, we want to set it to color red. Red. Cool. Come back. And now we can see we've got that. Something's gone wrong with the CSS because the background hasn't updated. I'm not 100% sure why the background hasn't updated. It should have done. Have I spelled background wrong at some point? No. That's weird. That is very weird. I don't know why the background's not changed. But anyway, you don't want to see me fix that, so I will say thank you very much for watching. There's a bug. There's a bug. But one of them isn't being coloured red. Oh no, it's only because we stopped the loop. That's fine. That's fine. It's literally just as the last one hits that we stop the loop. So there is a slight bug there. So we can fix that real quick. Undo that, undo that. Come out of here. Just as about to end the video, I've realised there's a bug. What we can do is we can... What we could do potentially is we could say we could move this. What did I just do? Okay, we can move check complete to the start of this function. That should probably stop that happening. Okay, cool. So you can see that's what's happening. Now you can see, you know, how viruses are spreading. Yeah, so hopefully you've enjoyed this video. Yeah, and that's fixed the bug. I just saw it happen. Hopefully you've enjoyed this video. I'm going to try and end the video now, because if I don't, I'll carry on rambling. So thank you very much for watching. If you have any comments, questions, or anything like that, stick them below and I'll try and answer them all. Codes in the description. Thank you very much for watching. Bye-bye.